don't think we have a communications problem. We have a cover-up problem. Imperial Oil reported to the Alberta Energy Regulator that its Kearl oil sands tailings ponds were consistently leaking on May 19, 2022, but they hid this information from the public until a second major flow of at least 5.3 million liters of tailings took place on February 4th that was too large to hide. The result of this inaction has been that toxic tailings, a byproduct of oil sands mining, has leaked into the environment and into the Athabasca River watershed, which numerous downstream Indigenous groups rely on for hunting, fishing, and drinking water. The regulator failed to inform the federal government or the government of the Northwest Territories as they are legally required to do. The Athabasca Chipewyan and Mikisew Cree First Nations and the Fort Chipewyan Métis Nation were kept in the dark while they continued to fish, hunt, and drink the water in the impacted watershed. The complete and total lack of governance is so bad that these downstream nations are calling for the regulator to be scrapped, to start over, and for the federal government to step in and help fix matters. The CEO of Imperial told the regulator they would inform the impacted communities, but instead hid it from them despite meeting with various Indigenous communities many times over 9 months. In spite of their own testing showing contamination exceeded the environmental guidelines for iron, arsenic, and hydrocarbons, and wildlife tracks entering their premises, Imperial wants Canadians to just trust them, that there are no impacts to fish, wildlife, or drinking water. Communities are rightly skeptical. Last week, First Nations representatives came to Ottawa to testify in front of the Standing Committee on Environment and Sustainable Development. Athabasca Chipewyan First Nation Chief Alan Adams had a strong message.
I come from a long ways, and to say that I have 5 minutes, you're going to listen to what I'm going to say with more than 5 minutes, because what I'm going to say is very important to the nation's interests in regards to how we are going to develop this country. And if you don't sit and listen to me, then I will get up and walk away right now. And I will leave this submission here, and it'll all be done here in 10 seconds. And I will be direct, and it'll be forthcoming. I came out of my way from Alberta to come to sit before you today to make you understand what it is that our people are going through. And we are not a joke. Good morning. Thank you to the honorable members for inviting us here today. This issue is extremely important, and it deserves more attention. While I would like to tell you that it is my pleasure to be here, that would be a lie. But it has been leaking tailings into our traditional territories for the last 11 months, let alone for the last 30 years. This is just what we know of.
Communities have been pushing for studies of the cumulative health impacts of oil sands tailings since as early as 2003. They're concerned that the regulator completely disregards the aggregate impact of many such projects on the environment and their Section 35 rights.
In the view of the Fort McKay Métis Nation, the events that have transpired are negligent. This has been avoidable from the start, and it should not have happened. To date, no one has been held accountable for the incident, and it is unacceptable that individuals or departments that have allowed this incident to occur are still either working on the issue or working in our region. The AER has zero credibility outside of Calgary's echo chamber, and they actively dismiss and downplay impacts of oil sands on communities and their Aboriginal and treaty rights.
As many of the witnesses pointed out, this is an issue of systemic discrimination, an act of environmental racism. All we have to ask ourselves is, would the company or the government allow tailings to leak for over 10 months into a watershed if a city like Calgary or Edmonton was downstream? I think you know the answer. We invited Imperial and the regulator to speak to our committee to tell Canadians what happened with Kearl, and instead of answering questions that are shaking confidence to the core with these operations, they chose to evade and deny answers. So we are seeking to have Imperial Oil and the Alberta Energy Regulator come back in the fall to report back on what they will do to fix this problem and to ensure it never happens again. The federal government has proposed a new federal, provincial, Indigenous industry notification and monitoring working group to create a new governance structure to ensure this doesn't happen again. But to restore confidence in the communities, an audit of tailings facilities, as well as a cumulative impact assessment on the environment, health, and Section 35 rights of Indigenous groups is necessary. We must ensure that this does not happen again and that those responsible are held accountable.